Okay.
Welcome everybody to the almost the yearly anniversary of the ISSA's Hangout sessions. This one's associated with pre-professionals, and it's for ISSA members and people who are interested in learning more about security. Pre-professionals are mostly folks that haven't get into the field and want to, and so we thought we'd approach the topic of a day in the life of a network security analyst. A couple of reminders before we get started, in that there'll be, if you have a question, there's a bar over on the left-hand side that you can put in for Q&A, and you can put in questions, and they'll rank them based off your voting on which ones you like, and I'll always hit the topic that has the most votes on it. So if you see a question you like, then vote for it, and it'll pop to the top of the list. We have a bunch of questions here. We have a wonderful set of panelists. We're going to go from 8 to 9:30 Eastern Time this morning on a wonderful Tuesday in December. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is David Dumas. I'm associated with the ISSA, and I'm the VP of the New England chapter of the ISSA. Been in the ISSA since 1998. I am a distinguished member, which is a term that they call folks that have got some experience in the field, and that was awarded by the ISSA. I have a CISSP, a CIM security certification, 31 years in the field. I currently work for Verizon, and I work for the Chief Network Security Officer and dotted line to the Chief Information Security Officer. So I'm your host today, and I would like to have each one of the individuals introduce themselves. I'll let you know in advance that they're all from the Applied Physics Lab, and they aren't going to say anything proprietary in any nature, but they have experience in this field, and they are our resident subject matter experts for today. So first off, I'd like to introduce Bill Smith.
Okay. Yes, hi, I'm Bill Smith. I'm with Security Operations Center Lead and Security Analyst here at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. We're located halfway between Baltimore and DC. I've been with APL for about 16 years now. I started out as a system administrator in the beginning of my career. I kind of morphed into a network security role several years in, and for the better part of the last decade, I've been in information security and a cybersecurity analyst. And I hold a CISSP and several SAM certifications, and I'm also president of the ISSA Baltimore chapter since 2008.
Thank you, Bill. Next one I'd like to introduce is Tony Sanchez.
Yes, hi. I'm Tony, and I also work at Johns Hopkins APL. I've been here for about two years. I'm an active member of the ISSA Baltimore chapter. I hold a SANS GX certification and a MCSA, MCP. I have about 12 years of IT experience, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jason Slemmer.
Hey, good morning, or whatever time zone. I'm Jason Schlemmer. I work with these two folks, Bill and Tony, with them in the Security Operations Center. I've been there for about a year and a half, and over the last about 6 years or so, I've kind of jumped around different parts of IT, from kind of help desk, field services, up to client management, then to kind of security engineering and security analysis. So kind of have a broad spectrum of a lot of different IT aspects, and happy to be here this morning.
All right, thank you, guys. Let's start off with some easy ones, since no questions have come in yet. How did you get started as a security analyst specifically? I mean, what sort of drove you there? And then if you can also weave in what kind of education that you got and what you're going for. So let's start off with Tony's picture showing. So Tony, why don't you start with you? How did you get started, and then what kind of education do you need?
Well, I actually got started as probably a help desk analyst. A couple years of that. I'm pretty well rounded in the IT field, so I kind of got the ground zero of it. I have a Microsoft track record. I've MCSA, which allowed me to get some of the networking concepts under my belt. Going into this field, I think that's very important. So it actually helped. I've actually, along with the majority of my experiences, is what pretty much complements what I'm doing today. Just because of the basic knowledge, the education. I am SAN certified, and I have a lot more to go. I'm actually still in progress working on my undergrad in information assurance, so I'm still at it in school, and it helps on the job training, and it's really exciting just to know that you get to apply what you're learning every day to, your education, and as far as the other training goes. So, but I came from a help desk environment years ago. I would say maybe around 2002, and I worked my way up, and went through the desk side support. And then went through the software engineering level, and took a step back just to get in. So it wasn't like I came in at a high level of education or training. I actually stepped back to learn the stuff, and then kind of worked its way through, and still working my way up. So
Excellent. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you can move from another field to this field, and it helps to have some technical experience, but it's not like you have to be a guru to start out as an analyst.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't need to be, rocket super scientist, but
There's no physics, right?
yeah, no, right. No, but you should have some understanding of network concepts.
Okay.
It's very important. And there's videos out there. I mean, Google's got everything you need now. So, I have always been an advocate of self-testing and self-learning, educating, and so forth. So on my downtime, I'm always either reading something, looking something up. I mean, there's power in knowledge, and those two are just very important. So, like I said, you don't have to be very legit, like I'd like to put it underneath the belt. You just got to come in with the I don't know, the excitement. Someone told me at first that this was like cops and robbers on the internet. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's awesome. So it's kind of catchy, but it's exciting. I look back now, and I always just use that example just for anyone that wants to actually come in and see what we do. So helps.
All right, let's jump over to Bill, since you're the lead analyst. Get a little different track.
Yeah, as I said, I started out as a system administrator. I did my undergraduate degree in information systems, and I came to APL back in 1998. And security has always been a part of my job in some degree or another. Initially with system administration was more, host-based kind of client-side security. And after about 9 years, I left APL briefly for about a year and a half to do vulnerability and penetration testing. And then I came back about this time. It was actually, it's almost a little over 7 years now. Since I came back to APL as a security analyst role. And in terms of background, I think the degree certainly help. I have an IT background and also have a master's in information assurance. But to supplement what Tony said, networking background is definitely integral. You need to know the basics of looking at network traffic, how to interpret it. If you get a network PCAP, you need to be able to view that and analyze and understand what's going on. If you don't have that basic knowledge, it won't be impossible to break into the field, but it'll be difficult. So it would do you well to have that background, and some program experience could be helpful in some way as well, like Python, JavaScript, Perl, languages of that nature. Sometimes to get things done, you just need to throw a quick script together. So in those languages, especially Python, are the most prevalent. But aside from the technical skills, I think also need to emphasize the soft skills as well, both the writing and public speaking. I've always said that one of the best courses I ever took in my college days was a public speaking course. I was always very apprehensive to get up in front of a crowd, and the public speaking course cured that real quickly. But in the real world, there's going to be times where you're going to have to present in front of both the technical and non-technical audience, so you need to be able to tailor your presentation to those audiences, or potentially a mixed audience. If you're talking to a bunch of analysts, they're going to want to hear all the technical nitty-gritty details, but if you're talking to CIO, CISO, higher level management, I don't want to say dumb things down, but you can't speak as technical to them. They want to hear things at a broader, higher level. So you definitely need to have those skill sets. And like Tony said, in his case, he kind of took a step back to move forward. So if you don't necessarily have the experience up front, you may have to kind of take a step back, and by that I mean, if you get a chance to get into an infosec role, that you may have to initially take a cut in salary, just knowing in the long run it's going to benefit your career. But that's, I've definitely emphasized the soft skills in terms of experience to have, and make certain you have them. Not only will those help you on the job, but it'll also help you in the interview process as well.
Thank you, Bill. All right, Tony. Yeah. Jason, I'm sorry. It's early.
We kind of look alike, so I can understand.
No.
My background, kind of like Tony, is necessarily in InfoSec, or actually for me, it's not necessarily in IT in general. I have a bachelor's degree in geographic information systems, so it has that information systems kind of buzzword at the tail end of it, but it really doesn't have anything to do with generalized enterprise IT or IT security. GIS, just as background, it's kind of like map making and knowing how to use the computers to actually generate maps for you, like a weather map or something like that. So that's kind of the world I came from. From there, I kind of jumped over and did desk side support, help desk type of stuff, which, similar to what Tony said, is kind of like, I kind of want to call it something like enterprise university, enterprise IT university, because that's where you'll go to learn a lot of stuff, actually. I know some folks, and I know it varies between programs, some folks who are almost complete their bachelor's in, say, computer science or some type of computer IT field, but they didn't know a lot of the enterprise stuff. I feel like it was very program heavy. They knew all of their programming languages, they knew all their scripting and generally how computers work, but they didn't know something like Active Directory, which is how a lot of domains are structured out. They didn't know how to use, I would say, basic IT tools, mainly Active Directory, and a lot of very common deployment solutions for like deploying software, maintaining patches. So it's kind of like two different fields. So even if you don't have a degree in computer security, but you want to get into, or computer science, but you want to get into security, they are kind of two different fields, I would say, in a sense. So a lot of the stuff you can learn on the job, as I did, if you do something like help desk, which then makes it easy to then jump around, because with the help desk, you get a lot of exposure to all different aspects, all different subfields within IT, because anyone will tell you there's no just kind of one IT field. You have your programming, networking, even wireless networking was something that I had done. So really anything that you can kind of sink your teeth into and get exposed to, kind of like a nursery growing ground, find what you like and then go from there. For me, I like security. I just like analytical thinking in general, problem solving. I kind of always have. So if you have that kind of mindset, you like solving problems, you really kind of like sinking your teeth into something, digging into it and figuring out what's going on, how it happens, and if it's something bad, how do we prevent it again. Security, I would say, is definitely right up your field. But so are other things too in the IT field. So like, even like networking, you'll have to use some of those same type of skills, but definitely in security, I would say. Cert-wise, I actually don't have. I have a CEH. That might be it. I don't really plan on leaving APL, so I don't necessarily feel the certs to be as valuable. I feel like certs are good if you have your own business and you're trying to present your credentials, or like what Bill said, if you're trying to pad your resume, to show your credentials there. So yeah, Bill, if you start seeing me get a bunch of certs all at once, you should be nervous. But that's kind of my background and where I stand on things. I actually started doing the security analytic role. It was actually as a rotation we have. So I didn't jump straight to being full-time. It was kind of a rotation. We have a lot of cross-training where we work, where you can train with other people, do rotations, and then it's not necessarily a walk through the door if you're good at it, but it definitely gets you exposure to the right people if you are good at it. And so if an opportunity presents itself, it's kind of, you're on their unofficial list of, oh, hey, we work with this guy, they're pretty good, let's go ahead and talk to them and see if they're interested in working with us. So that's kind of how I started out, as one of those rotational programs. And that's probably all I have to say about all that.
Okay, thanks, Jason. The only thing I'd add to certifications, which I've seen over the years as beneficial, is that it does two things. Number one, it shows people that you're interested in the field, because you have to, in most of these certifications, do 40 hours of training a year. Doesn't have to be in security, but it can be in other areas too. But it says that you're passionate about the field, you want to be in the field, and you're maintaining your certification through the training program. So that's one of the big benefits I see of it. And I can tell you that all of the resume hunters that do look out there, if you have certifications, it picks those things up really fast, because there's computers doing the hunting now. It's not people. And so having that on there at least gets you potentially in the front door for a new job, whether it's in your company or if it's in a company you want to move to, or if you want to get into the security field. Another thing that one of the resume guys, he's the CEO of a company that hires security folks, he suggested this, and I thought it was a good idea. Think about all the things that you can do, all the technologies, all the security buzzwords that you've at least played with a little bit, and put those on the third page of your resume in white font, so that nobody sees it. You can write on the top, this page intentionally left blank. But there's words out there on that third page, and the computers that are scanning it actually pick those words up, and they will bring your resume more up to the front, so that potentially they'll at least read it, let alone maybe give you a call. So you're not supposed to lie about what your skills are, but in the resume itself, you can't put all of those words and make them all make sense. But if you have done some work with Perl scripts, and you have played around with Python, and you have some programming languages, and you have some network experience, certain protocols. Some people are very picky about the type of person that they want to come into their company, and so it's hard to match your resume exactly to what their job is. But having all of those buzzwords on the third page in white text, so nobody really sees them as a human, but as a computer, it picks them up and it brings you higher up on the list, so that you may get a phone call, or at least they'll browse the first page of your resume before they set it aside for someone else. So it's thought that was a kind of a cool little trick for people who are trying to get into the field. So.
Yeah, that person's a genius.
Yeah, he's also the CEO of a recruiting company, but so that's what he tells his folks. So what I'd like to do next, we can start off with maybe we'll start back with Tony again. Can you describe a typical day in the life of a security analyst? What do you do every day? You get up, you grab some coffee, and you sit down to logs. I mean, what is it all about?
Well, most importantly, gotta have that coffee. All right, I just don't function well without it, but that's a different story. But my typical day basically starts off. We log into we have several machines in the SOC, so it doesn't actually matter which one. But we have several tools that we use that actually keep us aware of what's happening on the network, alerts and stuff like that. I don't want to get into all the stuff that we use, but so basically we play cops and robbers all day. We look at alerts, malicious files. We look at malicious web links, emails that might set off a couple alerts. In the infrastructure, basically, we have the appliances in place to alert us when a signature or something looks suspicious. So basically, we are staring at a machine all day. but we're also having a lot of fun because in this type of field, you got to keep it, you know, real, like I like to say it. And you know, we're not robots. We're still humans, so we got to have fun while we're doing it. But a typical day is basically watching what's happening on the network, making sure that you know, any patterns that look on a norm, you know, they're brought to our attention or to the tier 2 level or lead. You know, so you know, we're quiet, but we're making noise. But you know, and we make sure that, you know, nothing crazy is going off for a good 8 hours. I also am the SOC analyst trainee, a trainer. So myself, I get to actually train guys coming in through the rotation. I was part of that rotation, so gotten myself very familiar with the process and the way we handle things, what to look for. You know, and it's also a learning. Every single day, it's a learning experience. Nothing's the same, but it's fun. So that's pretty much my day, and you know, I look forward to every day because I know it's not going to be the same except for the coffee, but that's it.
All right, let me ask Bill that question. You got a little bit different take on it, probably because you.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily think there is a typical day per se. I mean, some days we could come in and have a very slow day, no events. You know, the following day, you know, we can wonder where the day went, or even within the course of a day. It just really depends on what's you know, what's going on in any given day. You know, and aside from, you know, looking at events that come into our various security tools, you know, we also view you know, other sources of data that we have, and sometimes we get notified out of band, you know, from users, you know, about potential issues that we have to investigate in. You know, but as Tony said, you know, we do have an important job to do here, but we do try to keep things, you know, fun on some level, because it can, at times, the job can seem like it's monotonous and you know, just kind of doing the same things. But in the end, you know, our job here is essentially to keep APL off the front page of CNN for a major breach at a very high level when it all comes down to it. So we definitely, you know, take our job seriously, but we also, you know, try to have fun with what we do too. But you know, as the SOC lead, you know, I'm responsible for kind of managing the overall team in the SOC. I also kind of help oversee the rotational program. We kind of refer to it informally as CyberSwap, which is basically a CyberSwap analyst program, and you know, it's a 6-month rotational program where we have staff with the appropriate background come in and trained by folks like Tony and also Jason just to get them up to speed. So it usually takes between 2 to 4 weeks to bring new analysts up to speed, and then the remainder of the rotation they're functioning as tier 1 analysts. And the end goal with that is to provide them an experience that they can go then take back to their project sponsors who are looking for those skill sets. The benefit for us is we get added staff without actually having to create additional slots. So it's been a win-win program across the board, and it's actually how both Tony and Jason came to us. As Jason alluded to, he was doing a 6-month rotation, and a slot opened, and we brought him over, and now you know, we have Tony working for us to the end of this fiscal year, fully on the analyst side. So the CSWAP program has definitely been valuable, and you know, in the event that we were to have a major incident here, we would have qualified analysts that have gone through our program, and we'd be able to pull in to help us if needed. So the program has a wide array of benefits, and it's also you know, provides an opportunity for people who don't have experience to get that experience. And then, you know, if something opens up here, then they, you know, they could potentially leverage that to move into a role, or if a position opens up outside APL, it's the opportunities there as well. So we don't want to see folks going through the program necessarily want them to leave, but if this is a field they want to get into, they do get the experience here, which is a kind of key component that organizations are looking for. Because one of the things that I frequently hear is, I'm interested in InfoSec, security analyst. I have the appropriate, educational background. I have some certifications, but then I hear, well, you don't have the experience. So in some regards, it's kind of a nasty catch-22 where you need the experience, but you also need an organization to give you that opportunity. So, and that's part of what we do here is we're giving some folks an opportunity, albeit for 6 months, but it's a valuable 6 months for those folks.
Oh, that's great. Sounds like a wonderful program. A lot of companies just do like internships, but you're basically organically growing people from within the company, which is a very smart way of doing it.
Yes. And Dave, I just did kind of something. We also do have a formal internship program here as well, and we actually have a high school intern that's working for us, and is actually he's actually still on staff here, for the remainder of his senior year, very bright fellow. So we definitely do a formal internship program, but this is we call a supplementary program that we have as well. That are, what we have here is more experienced, folks that are potentially a little further along in their careers. Although I do have to say we have had a few analysts that have been with the lab for several decades that are going through our program. So it's not necessarily limited to pre-professionals in this case. I mean, we've had folks from kind of all different areas. We've had folks within our IT department. We've had someone from our space sector here that's participating in our program. So there's definitely, as more and more people have gone through it, others have heard about it, and now we have more interest in it. Actually, so much interest that we actually, we can't obviously fulfill it all, but so we have to kind of put some of those folks in the queue, so to speak. But the program has kind of built itself up on its own, and now we have a lot of people interested in it. So that's definitely, I think, one of the better things that we've done here at the lab, and that's something that could work at other organizations as well.
That's great. So Jason, do you want to add anything to that, or you want me to ask you another question?
Probably another question. I probably couldn't add too much that they haven't already covered.
All right, so this is sort of a new one. I was talking with Tony beforehand, but could you describe a day to the audience that you sort of left the job at the end of the day and say, this is really great being a security analyst. I had a fun job. I did something today. I got an award. I stopped something bad from happening. Describe a day that you thought, you went home and you were charged up.
When something bad could have happened, but because of something that we did or something that I had done stopped it, that's probably going to be the most rewarding. Actually, we do have some little awards, but I make them, so it's not too big a deal if I have them. But I find it more rewarding anyways, just if something bad does happen or tried to happen, or if I caught something, something that kind of makes you, because it can be boring at times, depending on, like what Bill said, if it's slow or not. So sometimes it's heavy normal stuff, sometimes it's something you haven't ever seen before. So usually when you see something you haven't seen before and you give your chance an opportunity to kind of learn what it's doing and how to stop it for something that's relatively a new threat or something that is just new to the enterprise, just figuring out what it's doing, how to stop it and stopping it, that is probably the main thing that makes me leave and feel kind of energized and think, yeah, I did a good job with that.
Great. How about Tony? What would you say to that?
I think personally, my self-education is rewarding in itself because I get to actually educate myself in current technologies, and at the same time I'm smack right in the middle of it, so I get to apply all of this stuff. And then also with me gaining this knowledge, it actually lets me give back to my lab and keep our lab safe. Anytime our doors are open, so anyone that has questions, they can come in, ask us. Anyone that we can actually help, even if it's just giving them the knowledge that they need. They don't. Most people don't do what we do every single day, so they don't know. And even in IT, it's so broad that a lot of folks just don't know it. And if we have that knowledge and we can give it back, to me, that's gratifying in itself. And I can go and say, all right, cool, I'll do it again tomorrow. And it's enjoyable to actually help people out and to know that you're making a difference. Maybe not at the moment, but later down the road. And with this job security, because it's not ever going away. There's going to be moments where you're going to be glad that you became part of the cyber world, and you actually get to defend it. So it's like, that's, like I said, that's gratitude in itself. So.
Bill, you want to add anything from just management point of view?
Yeah, I think for me, what's kind of gratifying is just being able to go home every day knowing that we kept the lab safe for that day. I think that it in and of itself is kind of very gratifying experience. So I said we do a lot of sensitive work here and whatnot. So there's we have a lot of responsibility here. So just going home every day knowing, at least as far as we know, that we prevent any major incidents, that's definitely something that's gratifying. But then I think what also helps too is on occasion we'll receive emails or get phone calls or hear from management that so and so thanked us for pointing out something to them, whether it was a malicious email that was detected that we alerted them to, even a short email from you, thank you for bringing this to my attention, appreciate the job you're doing. I think it's those those sort of comments and feedback that help kind of help us make it through the day, because especially on days when we're getting hit with a lot of alerts or we have a major incident on our hands, it's just the kind of the little things kind of add up and certainly help us here.
Thank you, guys. Let me spin this thing a little bit differently. I know in my company there's always new technologies to learn, like cloud computing and Internet of Things and software-defined networks and virtualization, and it just goes on and on and on. And I'm quite sure in a labs environment that you guys are protecting, there's always new technology. How do you? I'll direct this first to Jason. How do you actually stay current on this technology, and so that you see something that looks normal or something that looks abnormal and stuff? How do you stay current on what the business in the lab is doing?
Well, there's always training. That's kind of the simplest short answer if you really want to just learn about a new piece of technology. But if you want to learn about something kind of specific to where you work, what I try to do is kind of keep my fingers working with a bunch of other different people on other projects that I might get exposure to these. Now, I can't do everything, just because of kind of separation of duties. I can't really have access to everything that we have, but for things that are major, things like virtualization, just virtualization infrastructure in general, I try to ask if I can maybe have kind of like a small environment for me to play around in and just kind of see how things react, kind of like a sandbox, so I can't destroy anything production or anything that's in testing for the rest of the lab. But I try as best I can to kind of persuade the people who manage those different infrastructures to give me some level of access, whether or not it's only just read-only so I can know my way around it, see how it works, or if they want to just give me my own environment, make me an admin on it, I can really do some damage and have fun.
Great. Tony, do you want to jump in with anything there?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing as Jason would say. If we don't have our own sandbox and not know what's going on, it's kind of hard to support. So it's very important to, either set up your own box or run some mock tests, or Yeah, and just look for that training yourself. I mean, it's all out there, like I said before. So if there's actually, I'm an advocate of education, so it's like I'm always out there trying to find something new to learn, even if it's valuable to what I do or what I'm going to do. So, if you're anything like me and want to keep putting puzzles together, you're gonna keep looking for it. So, that training is always gonna be there. But on the job training is the best training that you can have. So.
And one thing you mentioned before was you mentioned SANS. Are there any SANS courses that you thought really helped you out in becoming a security analyst?
Yes, the GSEC 401 is more of the it's a security boot camp, security essentials. It helped me out greatly because it let me apply what I learned to what I'm doing today. But there is CompTIA, which is more of the entry level for Security Plus. And with everything else, it's good to build that network topology base before you get jumping into security, because there'll be terms that you're going to have to step back and learn regardless. So SANS is pretty much assuming that you've already taken the network or have got the network-based skills, but it's not as overbearing like some of the other courses can be if you're not prepared enough. So
And then
I highly recommend it.
and from a networking courses point of view, would you recommend? I know they probably can't get it at the high school level, but would you go to a community college? Would you go to a general college and take a few courses in networking? How would you actually tackle that if you really wanted to come over into this space?
The intro to computers is definitely a must-have. That establishes a base to the computer world. The CompTIA security, excuse me, Network Plus is a great one. And even a lot of the network buzzwords, if you just, Google them or even YouTube them, there's breakdowns of everything that you probably need to know going into this type of field. But there's I can't stress enough how important just training videos are. And a little bit of knowledge is better than no knowledge. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Being around, been around the barn for a long period of time here. What kind of training do you look at your level, being sort of the lead analyst?
Well, I mean, the SANS training is definitely applicable. They have the introductory courses, but they also have more advanced courses. Within the forensics realm, I've taken several classes in the forensics realm, so it's definitely applicable. And the CISSP is another cert that's definitely applicable, especially if you're in a government space or working on a contract that requires it. The CISSP is kind of a managerial type of certification, the 30,000-foot view, so not very technical, but a lot of contracts requiring for anyone working in U.S. the 8570. That's the big policy there, though, that in the coming years it's probably going to be supplanted by a newer revision. But the CISSP is definitely one I would recommend, though you do have to have, I believe it's minimum 5 years of applicable experience. So, but they do have a lower level SSCP that you can basically hold until you get the experience, and then that turns into the CISSP. But yeah, I also have to re-emphasize what Jason and Tony said about education. There's a lot of paid content out there with SANS and whatnot, but there's also a lot of solid free content. Actually, one site that I stumbled across recently was called Cybary, cybary.it, I believe is the website, and they have a load of free training, I mean, across different realms, network and security programming. And the great thing about it is not only is it free, but they provide you certificates of completion. So if you have a CISSP where there are other certs that require continuing professional education or equivalent credits, you can take those courses and claim credit for them. So not only is it free, but you can also use it to help keep your other certifications current. And kind of from a higher level, not only is the education important, but I think it's also important to understand, its place in your environment. And being here at APL as long as I have, I've made a lot of contacts in various groups and departments across the lab, so I have a good feel for the different areas that we're putting a lot of effort in. And one by far is definitely the cloud computing area. I think it was in the last week. I forget the exact numbers, but it was pretty. I'm going to say it was maybe 75%, but that might not be accurate. But for all the cloud computing work that's going on here, a large percentage is using the Amazon cloud environment. So it's the prevalence of it is to the point that we're actually looking to build out a dedicated infrastructure to help support that. And there's even talk of pushing enterprise level things such as domain controllers out to the cloud at some point in the future. So yeah, the education is important, but it's good to know how it's applicable within your own environment. And so in our case, trying to keep current with all things cloud is definitely going to be pivotal for us, because I only see continued growth in that areas, and then also there's going to be a lot of, from an InfoSec perspective, there's a lot of concerns there that we have, so we're going to have to stay current there and be able to help protect any assets and whatnot that we have in that space.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to also put a plug in for the ISSA from an educational point of view. I help to plan like 6 meetings a year, and we usually bring in technical speakers and maybe a management topic to keep people up to speed on different things that are going on out there. You can also go there and network with your peers, and if you have a question about, hey, have you guys written a policy in this, or what are you seeing these types of attacks, or whatever it may be, it's just a good place to go and work with your peers. And there's probably a local chapter near where you are, and if you want to get into this field, one of the best ways to do it is to go and hang around with the people that are in the field, and we start up every meeting with who's looking for a job and who has jobs, and during the first break, go and talk to those people, and one can never tell when your next job may actually be at a local chapter. So I think that's a very inexpensive way to go, and you can get some good education. So let me ask a little bit about the side of employment. I know I've got a few statistics here, but basically they say that the growth rate for a security analyst is at about a 37% increase right now. The unemployment rate in security is at about 0. So if you're thinking about getting into this field, it's a good field, and they estimate that there's a lack of about 27,400 jobs in the security analyst area. So maybe a question, and I'll start with Bill since he's up. What if you were to wanted to become a security analyst, what public and private sector companies or areas would you think about going into to sort of get into the field?
Well, I certainly think the government's in play. I mean, the NSA is one potential opportunity there, but there's various sectors of the government that have hundreds or thousands of jobs that they're simply unable to fill. And I think even in the case of like the FBI, they have even relaxed some of the requirements that they've had in the past that precluded a lot of qualified individuals. So I think InfoSec is definitely the right field to be in now. There's a lot of jobs and not enough qualified individuals to fill them. But aside from kind of government sector, I mean, it's whether it's the medical field, financial, educational, InfoSec is kind of woven in to how they operate in some function or another. So there's a place for InfoSec in, I think, every sector. I think that argument can be easily made. So I think it's just a matter of what folks are kind of interested in doing. Obviously, if you're working in kind of a government space, government contractor, the environment's going to be, a little different than, say, working, in the educational space or this, financial space. In the financial space, you will have, the various, laws and regulations that are, in place there, and then, healthcare is another one where, you had things like HIPAA to worry about. So, so I don't think there's kind of a wrong sector necessarily to be in all day. InfoSec is needed in each of those, and I think one thing that I've noticed now over the last few years is that when if organizations need to reduce their staff, the one area they're most likely not going to take staff away from is the InfoSec. If anything, they're going to continue adding to that just because it's like every week we're hearing about another breach. So I think that's there's a lot of job security in that realm. If you're in a good position, qualified, and doing a good job, I think generally speaking your position is probably safe because organizations are only looking to increase the staffing there, not reduce it.
Thank you. Either Tony or Jason, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd like to just point out the importance of, especially high school or even college, coming out. You're not going to have a cert, or you may not even have the degree right away, but it's very important to take a look at these internships. And a lot of these places, that's just your foot in the door. Even if it's a summer job, the experience, the foot in the door, I mean, that's pretty much a given right there. Things they've gotten easier over the past because of security. Places like the FBI, places, these government agencies, private sector agencies, even so. But they want people to come in. They want people to have this interest in cybersecurity. It's not going away. We're in the middle of it. It's the future. There's always going to be room for another security analyst, always. Especially those that are driven and want more and want to learn it and excel at it. So pay attention to those internships. Networking is, that's key as well. You get a good mentor, and you want to learn everything you need to do, pick their brains. That's all part of networking. So that's very important to point out, especially for those folks coming out of high school and stuff.
Excellent. Jason, anything else to add, or?
Probably nothing really new. Just kind of piggybacking off of them, that pretty much any company, if they have a computer, they're probably going to need some level of cybersecurity.
Yeah, and I'd also just say, and maybe Bill mentioned it, but small and medium business, they may only have a few people in the actual security space. Someone managing some firewalls, someone looking at some logs and alarms. So you could actually wear lots of hats and get some really good experience in a small medium business, and then go to a bigger company. So don't overlook the small companies, because they have something that they need to protect, and they may be more hungry to bring someone on to get them up to speed faster. So that's another avenue to think about. So we'll start with Jason, since he's up on the screen here. If you were to pick a few tools for a security analyst to have under their belt, what would be your go-to tools that you'd recommend that they learn first?
Tools just being like security tools, on-the-job tools, or
whatever you on the job and security. What would you recommend would be a couple, and then I'll ask I'll ask Tony and Bill what they would pick. So
let's think. It's hard to say because the security, I feel like there's a lot of diversity. So as far as security tools, it's hard for me anyways, narrow down just one as far as from a specific vendor or a specific type of technology. But I would say more or less a lot of them operate similarly. So application whitelisting is always good to know. I feel like a lot of companies employ application whitelisting. Antivirus, as far as managing those kind of policies and how they propagate down. Active Directory is probably something that most enterprises use, so familiarizing yourself with Active Directory and group policy objects to possibly tighten and make your environment more secure. I would say those are probably some technologies that at least I would say most companies, most medium to large size companies would employ. Most importantly, I would say Active Directory, then probably down to antivirus, and then whitelisting is probably more scarce than antivirus and managing those kind of policies. Because I feel like when a lot of people hear antivirus anyways, they just think of, oh, all it does is scan my system for viruses, and it does. But on an enterprise level, there's a lot more that it can do as far as managing what computers can do what. Certain computers have certain rules because you have people developing certain software. So just knowing how to manage that and how it's pushed down and how to monitor that for different alerts, there's a lot that can go into enterprise antivirus. So I would say those are three biggest security tools, at least in a generic sense, without getting into specific vendors or platforms.
All right, Tony, do you want to pick what you'd recommend, or pretty much what Jason had to say? You got to come off mute, though. You're on mute.
That would help, right? Yeah, I think Jason pretty much covered it. I would only suggest probably your Windows system internal tools. Learn to use them. Learn what the actual computer is doing. Look at the processes. Look at the little things that the communication that comes off this machine. Learn to search for certain tools that admins are using. On a day-to-day, sys internals is one, especially if you want to know what's going on a machine and you want to do some analysis and see if anything's running or that's not supposed to. So a lot of the tools that we use, we learn, you get the on-the-job training. So there's nothing that actually requires, for you not to be able to do your machine. Just know your basic troubleshooting tools and how to use them on a machine. Too.
Thank you. I just want to also mention that if you have any questions, I haven't seen any so far, so if you have any questions, you can always type them in and we can answer them as we go along. It may be because this is so early in the morning, people are commuting to work, but I'm quite sure that they'll probably see it at any point in time because this will be recorded and people can watch it later. So let me swing to a different question for you, Bill. As far as security regulations and standards, what are some of the things that an information or a security analyst should know in the sort of the whole regulations and standards area? What are some of the things you'd look at?
Well, honestly, I think it depends on the sector that you're working in. If you were, in healthcare, HIPAA is going to be a big one. Financial might be, Sarbanes-Oxley. For myself here in the government sector, where I work, I know a big one that we're looking at now is I don't remember, it's DFARS. I don't remember what the exact number is, but it's a specific DFARS regulation, and kind of the gist of it is that if we have any incident that involves or data that's associated with a project, then we basically we're required to notify the government if there's that data is compromised or suspected to be compromised or otherwise involved in an incident. So I think it depends on the sector you're either that you're working in terms of regulations, and for my entire professional life, I've been kind of in the government space, so that's kind of where I draw my experience from. But I think it just really depends on the sector that you're working in, and that will kind of drive what regulations and whatnot that you have to adhere to.
Thank you. Let me ask this question, and I'll start off with I guess Tony. You're a security analyst today. What are your next career steps from a security analyst? Where else could you sort of branch out so that it's not a dead-end job? Is there other things you can do?
Well, it's definitely never going to be a dead-end job. I guarantee that on the security level. You know that. I plan on, furthering my education, picking up a couple more certs. Definitely work for my CCISP. Being part of the ISSA Baltimore chapter allows me to network and keep that knowledge up front all the time. There's always going to be a lot more experience ahead of me. So, and with a couple years in cybersecurity, that comes with the territory. But I just I want to stay in this field. It's growing, and it's going to be bigger than what it is now. As far as the attacks, they're growing. So you kind of grow with the field. So and there's no way around that. So as long as you're in this field, I know I'll eventually grow into another field. Maybe in intelligence and whatever I can contribute back to where I'm employed. It's just that's the benefit of it. So, and it benefits my education and my training. So that's pretty much it.
Well, Jason, where are you going to go from here?
There are a couple different things you can do. So a security analyst, I'm going to say in the general definition, is to kind of respond to, it's kind of tier 1, tier 2, very reactive capacity rather. But you can also branch off and do things like engineering, where you're actually maintaining the appliances that keep you safe versus just being on the back end feed of it. You can also move to maybe create content that alerts. So if you have some kind of system that alerts you when some event gets triggered, you can be the one kind of creating these correlation rules or creating these kind of filters and content for everything. So that's something else you can do. You can also kind of go into the defensive or the offensive side and do things like pen testing and actually hacking into a network for pay. And then that way you can just get experience there. So definitely there's a lot of different security jobs out there besides just being a reactive analyst. You kind of highlighted some of the big ones there, but you can even go into things like, not necessarily technical, but you can go into like cyber law, cyber policy, where you can read all these DFARs and all the different policies that each of the different industries and sectors have to kind of adhere to. So you can do anything that you want to. So I know people that aren't necessarily technically inclined, they can still do a lot of the policy, business contingency, or continuity planning, incident response planning, which is a lot of high-level planning and paperwork. So there's still some non-technical jobs in security that are going to be coming up in demand as well. So aside from analysis, I'd say all of those that I just kind of covered are some stepping points.
That's great. How about Bill, since you've been around for a while?
Well, actually, to kind of add to what Jason and Tony said, actually, I'm not sure that I necessarily see myself branching off into the field, but I think there's definitely opportunities kind of in the legal realm, especially as, we see these security breaches, so there's obviously going to be a legal side to them in most cases. So how, if someone wants to kind of get into the legal field, that involves a whole separate educational process that you need to go through. But there's some opportunities there. But for me personally, right now I'm happy kind of in the technical role, but in the future I could see myself moving into a managerial role of some sort, or program management, or within the InfoSec realm. I think before I would do that, I'd have to kind of come to the realization that I think lose some of the technical edge that I have. But for now, I'm very happy with the technical role and don't necessarily want to move away from that. But if the right opportunity presented itself that happened to be in the management realm, it's something that I would strongly consider, as I think in the long run that would benefit my career. So that's where I could potentially see myself in the future.
Well, that's great. I can honestly say that since I've been in the field for a long time, I'm doing a lot of that governance work, working with the lawyers, working with offshoring, working with the regulatory changes and laws that are changing around the world, since we're in 150 countries. So you can just keep on growing in this field. The reason why I get into network security is because I was in computers and programming back in the 80s, and I just felt like You know, someone said, well, why wouldn't you get into security? You got to know something about physical security and networks and applications, which I knew, and you know, databases and all of that stuff, and so you can constantly keep on molding and changing, as opposed to, you know, you're a programmer in C or C++ and you just get new projects every year. So, and then from that, I just kept on grabbing things as they came along, and create a whole diverse knowledge base just by trying all kinds of things in security, engineering, information security work. I did security consulting, and then I went to Verizon in their security lab and just started growing products and putting security in. All when the internet came about, everybody had to protect it and protect that stuff, or someone was going to come in and walk around and play and snoop around. And nowadays they take things, but back then they would just change a website and say, we got you. Now it's very different, and the threat's changing. So there's constantly ways to grow and move in this field, and that to me is one of the positives and keeps you there for a long period of time. Let's talk maybe a little bit about, I know that a few guys had mentioned about mentoring, but how, if you're a security analyst or wanted to become a security analyst, how would you find a mentor? So we'll start with Bill, since he's up on the screen.
Just muted myself. In terms of finding a mentor, well, I mean, I think one potential avenue is, you know, at the high school level. You know, through my involvement with ISSA, we started, within the last couple of years, we started working with you know, a lot of universities and also, you know, high schools on some level through our STEM efforts. So so I think there's, and I think, you know, those educational institutions, especially the high school level, you know, are aware of the need for cybersecurity specialists. So I think they're doing what they can to promote that field. So I think there's some opportunities there, but at the there's certainly at the college level, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there as well. Some of the local colleges that we're working with, you know, from a student chapter perspective, you know, frequently come to us and ask if we had, you know, aware of any mentoring or internship opportunities at our respective employers. So I think that's so I got ISSA, I think, is definitely a resource that folks looking for mentoring or internship opportunities you know, can leverage, because a lot of the members have access, you know, are either in a hiring capacity or know the right people to talk to at the organizations to ask the right questions. So ISSA is definitely kind of at the top of the list there in terms of trying to gain access to those opportunities.
Jason and Tony, do you want to add anything?
I just probably want to add that, you know, if you as part of the internship program, you know, you take the initiative and ask, you know, for mentoring. It looks good. It gets people interested in you because you're interested in the field. You know, we have a good mentoring program here at our lab. You know, and you know, people from different departments can mentor up with different other departments just so they can learn a different aspect of what they do every single day. But you know, look for it and want it. You know, ask for it. You know, someone that actually shows me interest in it, I'm gonna put more time into them versus someone who really doesn't, just wants to, you know, hey, is it for me? Is it, you know, if someone knows what they want and they want to get it, then that's probably a good candidate for this type of field. So,
Jason, anything to add?
Not really. I think they kind of both covered the mentoring intern. I was never an intern, so I don't have too much personal experience with it, but they probably covered most of what I would say.
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions from the audience. So let me, we'll ask Jason first this question. Michael wrote, I am not as technical, but I have a degree in cybersecurity policy. I am also new to the field. So what career track would you advise that I should be, what track should I be on for my next 3 steps? What should I be doing? I want to get into cybersecurity, but I don't know what my next step should be.
Well, if you have a degree in cybersecurity policy, I guess it assumes that, I guess knowledge of local business enterprise policy as well as domestic policy, I guess things like HIPAA and payment card industry policies. So I guess I would say whatever your strong suit is, whichever one of those policies, how your program was, whatever you're most comfortable with, maybe search for jobs in the policy field that would go there, or maybe an internship. I'm not sure the current situation of you, but definitely continue the policy route, because I feel like a lot of people look at security as far as the technical aspect, but really the policy aspect is kind of coming through to being needed as full-time jobs for a lot of these companies too, because the government or other agencies are imposing more and more regulations on them. So knowing the policy and keeping up on the policy, including internal policy as far as maybe business contingency, disaster recovery, that kind of falls into a similar boat. I'll just say look for jobs kind of in that field. I would say that would probably be mostly in kind of medium to large companies. More small to medium might not have the budget to have a policy person. So I would say look for medium to large size enterprises that would need a policy person that's going to be in one of these kind of mandated sectors, like banking industry, payment card industry, or healthcare industry.
All right. Bill or Tony, anything else to add to that? No? Okay.
Or actually, I'll go ahead and add something. I mean, I think that there's definitely is a place for the cybersecurity policy. I know here we're actually just in the process of creating a new section that's compliance and policy that's specifically focused in on those areas because of things like DFARS and other policies and regulations that we need to adhere to. So I don't necessarily think there's anything. I think that kind of area is not necessarily a bad one to be in, because there definitely is a need for it. So I think it's just a matter of trying to find the right opportunity, the right organization, and I would suggest that if you have any kind of contacts that in the field, or are able to network through ISSA and other events, to try to leverage those contacts for potential opportunities. Because honestly, a large part of how I got to where I am today is through networking in ISSA.
I want to go ahead and add something real quick. It won't hurt to actually learn the technical aspect of it. It probably give you an advantage over policymakers, because that way you learn it from, well, I would like to say, ground zero coming in. If you're setting policy, it's good to understand what's being put in place. So giving you that advantage and having that technical aspect of you, even if it's just the intro to the security, you'll have an advantage over people in your field or the competition that you're faced against. So that's just a small suggestion.
All right. Cool. The only thing I'd add is don't ignore the sort of the big 4 or 5 accounting firms, because it would be a great way to get some security consulting experience. They probably have a need for people with cybersecurity policy in all of those consulting engagements, and it would be a way for you to look at 4, 5, 10, maybe 15 different sectors, and through that you may say, hey, I'd like to target the financial sector, or hey, I'd like to target the healthcare sector, or maybe the communications sector, like I did, and then you can hone in on it with that consulting experience and go and apply for those types of jobs. So not many people start off with a cybersecurity policy, so you have some unique skills, so definitely use them. There's another question that came in. I'll start here with Tony for this. What advice do you have for someone transitioning into cybersecurity field besides Tylenol? Go ahead.
I can't say lots of beer, right? I'm
No.
kidding. I'm really not. But no, coffee, a shoulder to cry on. Just a good support group, knowledgeable group, um, you know, whatever relieves the pain. uh, that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Jason, any advice?
For transitioning into the cybersecurity field, depends on the role. I will say this is the same person who said they have a degree in the policy. So if they're interested in getting some technical experience, maybe some kind of mentoring program with the company, or some like what Tony likes is the the self-learning, whether or not like SecurityTube, YouTube videos, something like that. So getting some technical knowledge from that aspect if you're interested in that, but then just general transitioning into the field. I guess it kind of depends on the field you're coming from as well. If you're straight out of college, it's going to be kind of like transitioning into any new job, just kind of getting used to the culture of where you work. I would say most security cultures, from what I see, are kind of relaxed. It does depend on the firm where you work and the company, but yeah, it really depends on where you come in from. But really, just kind of getting used to the culture, I would say, is probably the biggest thing to do.
Bill, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd like to add is just is patience. I mean, you want to try to find the right opportunity, and may not necessarily happen right away. So I think that's you just have to be patient and just patient, persistent, and be sure to follow through on any opportunities that come your way, and don't necessarily rush into the first opportunity that presents itself. Especially if you have any kind of doubts about it. I mean, you want to feel you're going to make the transition into this field. You want to make sure it's an opportunity you're comfortable with and feel it's going to be good for your career. So I think just patience, persistence, and don't necessarily, take the first opportunity unless it's something that you feel is going to be good for your career.
I'd like to also just add is, if it's something that you're really interested in, just follow it. You won't know until you actually get in if you're going to love it. And the majority of the folks that I've spoken to end up loving it, and this is what I eat and breathe every single day. So I never thought that I'd actually make it this far. So the possibilities are endless because of the need. And also the the talent that's out here, the education, the training. I mean, it's out there, so you just got to get it. That's pretty much it.
All right. So please continue to ask your questions. We've run out of questions, so you'd be first in the queue. So let me ask another question. Let me start out. I did a little bit of salary range checking. So I looked at Tony's paycheck and Jason's paycheck and Bill's paycheck. No, I'm just kidding. This is sort of an online survey, and they said entry-level security analysts, depending on where you are in the country, median annual salary is $88,000, and they said that the best 10% can make up to about $130,000, but the lowest around $50,000. So if you're just getting out of college, that's a pretty decent number, especially if you have some internships and experience. The best places in the country they also mention are Sacramento, California in general, Norwich, Connecticut, and New York City. Oh, by the way, those are very expensive places to live in, so that's why the salary would be higher. So that wasn't so much a question, but just a little motivator in that the field will pay for an apartment, a car, food in your belly, and give you some rewards like that on top of kind of a fun job.
I'm actually surprised you didn't list DC in that list, did you?
No, it wasn't in here, but absolutely DC, just from the government
I
whole.
was gonna say, yeah, I would say DC has a very high amount from what I see around here.
And it's also very expensive.
Just to live there, yeah.
Yeah, so it's that would be another area to beef up your salary some, I guess, and have lots of opportunities if something was to happen. We didn't mention a lot about technologies like firewalls, IDS, email filtering, data loss prevention, and the whole thing of centralized logging. But how does all of that? How do you learn all of those other tools on top of the basic tools we talked about? How do you get experience with all that other stuff? Jason, you want to take that one?
I would say if you're coming into a security job and you don't have any real experience with any of that kind of stuff, just learn how to do the bare minimum kind of tier 1 security analyst kind of stuff, because that doesn't really deal too much with centralized logging and dealing with all the different tools that feed into it, as much as it does just responding to something that says, hey, something bad happened. So I'd say kind of start there at tier 1, and then once you kind of get that under your belt, then you get exposed to all the different technologies that are out there in your environment. Then you can go and then dig around. You learn who manages them. You can ask them for help. You can, kind of what I mentioned before, maybe ask for a read-only account or a special maybe sandbox environment in it. But really it kind of starts, I would say, a lot of on-the-job training, starting from not having a specific duty that requires you to know it, and then you can then dive down and then learn it either on your own or from getting on different projects. And then from there you can build a robust set of knowledge on your own environment, as well as probably what the environment of other companies looks like as well.
Bill, you want to jump in with anything there?
Yeah, I think it's just you have to kind of look for the opportunities. I was fortunate just over the course of my career that I've gotten exposure to a lot of the underlying technologies that you mentioned, firewalls, also intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. My kind of job duties just kind of morphed out into those areas, so I was able to get the hands-on experience for them. So I would just say, look for the opportunities, and if you're interested, ask, even for kind of a read-only account, so you can kind of poke around, see how things are configured to work, and without, potentially doing any damage to them. That may or may not fly in some organizations, but it's certainly one, way to get exposure. And then, also say like eBay. I mean, you can go on eBay and find an old Cisco firewall router, switch, or whatever. You can go grab that, play around with it at home, and that's some of the best experience that you can have. And actually, that could kind of potentially help in the job interview as well, because one of the questions that we tend to ask folks here when we're interviewing is, kind of how do you protect your home network? What do you do just to kind of get just kind of one of those feeler questions, but if they come right out and say, I don't do anything at all, that might kind of raise some potential red flags for that person. So it actually has some tangible benefits that may not immediately realize. So I would encourage folks to do that. You don't have to necessarily pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, you can find cheap Cisco switches, routers, firewalls, and whatnot that you can just connect to your home network and play with to your heart's content, knowing that the only one you're potentially likely going to impact is yourself. So
that's a great suggestion. Tony, any ideas on how to learn all these cool technologies like firewalls and IDS and stuff like that, or just pretty much what Bill had to say?
Well, I would just basically suggest learning where these appliances are placed, so you know exactly what they do. Learning the base of it is first the most important. And then if you want to go out and grab some dinosaur switches or something like that, and you set up your own little network. I mean, that's since the beginning of network administration, that's what people have been trying to do. So that's the best practice that you can get is your home network, because you can break it, take it down, do whatever you want with it. But definitely understand where these technologies are in play as far as network and what their purpose is, and that's already half the battle right there. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Hey, we got another question that came in. I'll direct it to Jason to start with. The person asked, what should a job seeker expect in an entry-level interview for a basic SOC analyst?
I would say so. The skills really to probably look for would be general troubleshooting experience, just to kind of show that you have that kind of analytical thought process. And a lot of people, I would say, have that. But anything to really demonstrate an analytical style thinking, as well as I would say basic experience with things like firewalls, or at least knowing the concepts of like TCP/IP protocols, the concept of maybe some of the security tools, like knowing what they do generally, knowing how sandboxing utilities work, environments work, knowing what application whitelisting does, knowing like what patch management is, and just kind of knowing generally what these type of things do, how they operate, how they kind of all culminate to make an entire enterprise security posture. So I would say basic knowledge of all that, then any kind of education, certifications, and degrees would help with that as well. But general knowledge and skills, I would say a mixture between analytical, troubleshooting type of things to general knowledge of what makes an entire enterprise security posture.
So let me ask you, Bill. You talked about the question about how you would manage a network, but your home network. But what other tough questions would you ask if you were interviewing a SOC analyst?
Well, if we were interviewing like kind of a more senior type analyst, one question that we throw out there: if you were given, say, $1 million budget to protect the organization's network, what would you do with it? And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer per se, but it's more, I think going back to the analytical thinking there of, what does that candidate consider kind of important from their perspective in terms of, security? Because, there's various things. It could be network security, it could be, user education or awareness training, could be endpoint security. So there's different areas that you could kind of use that money for. So it's a hypothetical question, but it's it's just a question that we get some interesting feedback on, now and then. But I think that's a question we frequently kind of asked candidates when we've interviewed them.
Interesting. Tony, anything to add?
No, I think they pretty much covered it.
Okay.
I'd probably ask them how detail orientated are they, and this field is very detail orientated, and I'd take into account how analytical they are, how well they want to put puzzles together, and probably pick at their just basic knowledge of networking and some of those buzzwords. I would look to see if this candidate has the lingo or understands the lingo of our field, and that's a plus. When you look up certain words and you're like, oh, I learned this, I'd take that into account. So that's it.
That's great.
Yeah, Dave, I'd just like to go back to the network, and I think that's definitely a critical skill set that we, even for kind of a junior analyst to have, is that wouldn't expect this kind of come with like a Cisco CCNA or certification, but at least need to understand the basics of how packets work, protocols and whatnot. If you don't have that basic fundamental skill set, it's going to be extremely difficult in this role. And in some companies they may be able to help provide that training, but if you're interviewing two candidates, one has a strong networking background and the other one doesn't, then probably going to lean towards that person that already has that background in many cases. So it's definitely emphasized having that skill set. And again, that kind of goes back to even kind of playing around at home with network devices, just to kind of that the time spent would actually could potentially do wonders there. So in terms of getting the knowledge and experience that you need.
Yeah, I was thinking now that I have experience in it, but if someone gave me the $1,000,000 question, now that I have experience, the first thing I'd do is I'd put that money aside and I'd find out about the business, and I'd find out where people perceive the gaps to be, and maybe even run a cyber tabletop exercise in a few areas, check out their incident response process, see where those gaps are, know what's the most valuable thing in that company to protect. It could be a certain database and other controls sufficient in there. Maybe that's where I want to put my money, because that would bring down the company and probably lose my paycheck out of it. So, I would do some analysis first before I went out and spend money on a firewall or antivirus or something. Yeah, they're important, but there's a lot of security tools in the field. How would you help the business? So I would think about it from a business point of view. What does the business need to stay running day to day from a security perspective? So answering in like that would actually, even if you didn't have technical skills, would maybe bring you closer to that culture and closer to explaining that, yeah, I may not have all the tools I need, because I want to be a security analyst, but I'm thinking creatively about how to help this business, because in the end it's my paycheck that I get paid every week or two. So another interesting way to answer the same question. We probably have time for maybe one final question, which was, how do you stay current on the data breaches, the incidents that are out there, and the latest malware? Where do you go to find out what's going on? Do you use the media outlets? Do you use like SANS? Do you use US CERT? I mean, where do you go to get your feeds to figure out what the next wave of threats that are coming? We can start with Jason.
There are a bunch of different sources. Symantec has a lot of different reports. Symantec and Verizon, I believe, have reports on kind of the current landscape of the threats out there. There are also kind of blogs that exist, like Krebs. Brian Krebs has a website, Krebs on Security, so that he's actually pretty good. He has a lot of up-to-date information on there. So between those, then obviously things like OPM, those are going to be on the headlines. Sometimes you have to do some digging, but Symantec, a lot of the big security firms, and even Verizon will have some reports they'll put out as far as maybe what's happened in current landscapes, as well as some really deep dives into specific malware, as well as just more of a general landscape. So I think it may have been Symantec had a really good technical write-up on Stuxnet, and so yeah, you can find deep dives into specific malware or actors, or just general reports on what the landscape looks like.
Cool. Tony, what's your secret sauce?
A lot of the security training vendors, SANS being one, they have a good informational page on the current malwares or the attacks, or what to look for, what's everyone dealing with. Like Jason said, there's blogs out there that actually we follow for some of the attacks that we get, or some of the malicious stuff. So someone, say in Europe, has already posted it on a blog, and we'll keep up to date with those in the morning, just so we know what we got ahead of us. But the information is out there. A lot of the, like Jason said, the antivirus vendors, they provide all that information. A lot of the reputational websites that we have out here that we do for analysis, they also give out information. So we stay current while working situations or alerts or so forth. But it's good to have a good blog to follow. And I like to follow the SANS training. They have a good one that keeps pretty much current on the day-to-day alerts and so forth. So,
any closing remarks, Bill?
Yeah, just to kind of add, I mean, the Internet Storm Center from SANS is definitely an excellent resource, and actually there's a number of security-related mailing lists that I'm on that are useful as well, and obviously all the major vendors, Microsoft, Symantec, and whatnot. There's no shortage of sources out there. You just got to make sure it's reputable and well known, but kind of in closing, at least from my perspective, wanted to do a final plug for ISSA. Say that's, I mean, could definitely be a resource as well there. With the members of your respective chapter. As I mentioned earlier, ISSA has done wonders. For my career from just a networking growth perspective, and highly recommend joining that for anyone, and particularly students at the college level. They are our future there, and we're trying to grow the number of members at the student level. So, and Baltimore is trying to do its part by with a number of student chapters that we have set up here in the area. So, but definitely highly recommend ISSA membership for anyone that's looking to kind of advance themselves in the field.
All right, and I'd like to thank my guests, Tony, Jason, and Bill, and for filling in the security day of a typical security analyst. So thank you for your time. I had a good time as being your host, and I look forward to many more of these meetups in the future. So thanks again, everybody, for participating. Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you, Dave.
Bye.
Bye.